Very nice to see you on the webinar. Please make sure to mute yourselves. We will assist with that from our end. And I'm sharing the presentation that we prepared for you today. I think we will just wait for like 1 more minute and start just to make sure that everyone has connected and everyone can see and hear me well. So we will just wait about 40 seconds from here.
Process to expand sales capital, relationship capital, getting information that is nice to have, but not necessary to have. Because
all right, nice. Yeah, so if you can see the screen and if you can hear me, please type plus in the chat if everything is all right, just for me to make sure that all is well with the sound and with the video as well. All right, very, very nice. Gotcha. Yeah, so I would like to welcome you on the webinar. I think this is fourth or fifth one that we're doing. And last one actually got a lot of views on YouTube. So it got like 24,000 views on YouTube. The topic was the implementation of blockchain into your business. And I was speaking with some people who are basically doing YouTube as their like work. They said that something like this might happen if the content is unique and there is like no content like this on the platform. So it's pretty interesting. So it's like a tip if any of you essentially is doing like blockchain content or something. But I will essentially start the webinar. The topic of the webinar is the implementation of GPT into a healthcare business. We would be sharing some cases that we're doing with some of our clients. We would be sharing what we're doing in our business as well in terms of the integrations, and I would be sharing what businesses that I know are also basically doing with the integration and implementation of ChatGPT. It's an interesting thing because most people and most businesses are, I would say, they stopped and they maybe like checked thing or two. They implemented some things, but not much. But there are some that really dive deep and they basically keep improving and they keep improving the knowledge of communication with the tool. And basically, they keep improving the things that ChatGPT can automate and improve in their business. So I would start with the quick intro. We are Interexy. We are 150 plus engineers company. We're headquartered in Florida. We have office in Dubai and UAE, where I'm based currently. Now, our main development centers are located in Poland and Estonia. And we're providing Web3 custom blockchain, web and mobile development services. But overall, we're essentially a custom software development company. We've initially started as a mobile development company. I'm an iOS engineer in the first place, so we have a lot of experience and expertise in the company in terms of building mobile applications in healthcare, actually specifically as well. Then during COVID, after the COVID started, we basically switched into healthcare a lot because many regulations they lifted away from the market, which allowed for many new software products to arrive on the marketplace, solving the needs of people and like isolation and stuff. And around last year, I would say like 1.5, 2 years ago, we got into blockchain development. And it's interesting because we even were doing like some projects where we had a combination of blockchain and healthcare. So it's like the combination of niches. And it's very, very, very interesting, like what type of blockchain implementations you can also have in healthcare business, but maybe that's just the topic of the next webinar. We grow at least 3 times each year, except the last one. The last one was like pretty stable at the same rates for us. And the clients of ours, they fundraise a lot of money, and then they raise quite often as well. Often based on the products that we're building for them and based on like technical expertise and things that we're doing for them. I'm Stan, I'm the CEO and co-founder of the company. Initially, I was an engineer, as mentioned. And right now, I'm basically running the company. I'm into day-to-day operations, talking with the clients, solving some issues. And in the company, I'm also doing, to the most part, marketing and sales. I'm technical myself as well, so I'm constantly on the innovation part as well. And essentially, the urge to enter blockchain space was created by me in the company, and the same with ChatGPT in terms of providing services and in terms of getting into that. However, we have some team members who essentially pushed for that as well, which is very, very nice to work in this kind of environment as well. Yeah, this is intro about blockchain. Dom is our blockchain tech lead. He's why we have a lot about blockchain here is because I would say the innovative structure of the company and the fact that we innovate a lot helped us to get into ChatGPT fast, helped us to implement it in our business, and helped us to basically gain the knowledge and intelligence that I would be sharing on this webinar. I'm presenting Domi here because he was basically helping me with the creation of the webinar and the presentation as well. Fortunately, he's not here with us currently, but I will be able to basically share his part of the presentation and answer tech questions to the best of my knowledge at the end of the webinar as well. So if you would have some, you would have option to just post them in the chat or ask them just through unmuting yourself. And if there would be some that we won't be able to answer at this stage, I would just save them and send a response to your email and basically to anyone who would be interested. So we'll probably do just like an outreach to each and everyone who is present with us currently. So the part one of the webinar is why you would need to integrate ChatGPT into your product, specifically speaking about healthcare product here. And we have 4 different parts, which are systems, business costs, competition, and value. It's a very interesting trend with AI currently, and companies that essentially are on the forefront right now, who are actively investigating into technology, investigating into the capabilities, and investigating into how they can essentially implement things, integrate, automate, improve systems, improve quality in the business. They are essentially several steps ahead of everyone else on the marketplace. And it's a very interesting point in the marketplace because something like this would only have option to happen in, I would say, upcoming year or two, depending on the businesses and depending on the industry as well. Because obviously, larger businesses, they would probably take some more time to integrate something like this. And there are some industries that generally just take more time to take implementations like this on. However, if you are in, I would say, in the medium to high competitive business, which is digitalized to a certain extent, you probably have the competition utilizing the tools, utilizing ChatGPT currently. And it's not only ChatGPT at this stage. There are a bunch of AI tools where you can essentially do automated AI videos. You can do responses to certain messages like a chatbots on your website. You can essentially do sales presentations with them and things like that. I even know of a company that is doing translations to different languages through the AI model. And they basically mimic the person through the AI model and the voiceover, so they can instantly translate and kind of steal influencers' content. If they're doing it in one language, they basically can do it in a different language and just take that share on the market. And the only thing that initial content creators can do is basically strike them if we're talking about YouTube. So it's already happening, and there are already people basically making a bunch of money on it, and businesses leveraging this as well. So from the business point of view, I've mentioned several things about AI adoption as well. And the second point is very, very interesting. It's about the cost of errors, and it's the cost about human errors. So it's a very interesting point because there are different business models where you often have, for example, you would often have a need of hiring new people to basically scale. And I'm speaking specifically about agency type of business model, the one, for example, that we have. And on the other hand, you would have a business model of running a product business. So especially if it's like a digitalized product or e-commerce, where you often won't need to add a lot of stuff to scale, or it would be maybe just several people. I know that Twitter, to a certain extent, when they already have like tens or probably hundreds of millions of users, they were just a team of 30. So they were not like extending their team to a very, very long time. I think they were a unicorn at that stage already, and they still had a team of 30. So it's a pretty interesting and important thing. And as you scale, and especially if you're in the business where you have to scale with increase in people, the cost of human error becomes higher, higher, and higher. And at a certain point, if you don't have everything processized and controlled, or if you want to have like if you don't have like very, very nice culture and very, very nice people that everyone like, you know, is proactive, is working, and it's a rare thing to see something like this as well. At a certain point, it even blocks scaling of the company. And I think that's something that we faced as a custom software development agency at a certain stage as well. And I'm not saying specifically about like human errors in development specifically, but mostly, you know, like sometimes in hiring of positions like of sales, marketing, maybe some people who are doing something with HR and legal stuff and things like that. And you're definitely left there if everything is not processed and controlled under basically the responsibility of each individual who's working on something. And many of the processes, even in our business, they can already be automated, or which is more interested for people who are doing the same thing, they basically can be removed by one person who basically just knows how to use ChatGPT and how to work with it. And this is something that we are testing with engineers from time to time. But what the trend shows is that in some years from now, not probably now because the whole technology is pretty raw currently, but probably in some years from now, you will be able to replace a team of 5 engineers, but basically just one engineer who would know how to work with prompts with ChatGPT and basically write more stuff in one day. And in some case, it would even increase the quality of the product, because this one person would essentially have the whole product in his head. He would know all the parts, and he would spend like less time on actually writing the code and everything. And it's pretty interesting because I can't say it would change the job much, because still in the development currently, if we're speaking about our case, the most amount of time is actually thinking about how to solve the problem, and the least of time amount of time is writing the actual code. So ChatGPT currently is automating the process of writing the actual code and maybe fixing some issues in the actual code, but it does not solve the problem of architecturing and thinking how to improve things and things like that. Systems to scale, specifically in healthcare as well, we have an additional point where it becomes very, very important to write very clear procedures inside the business and to make sure that they are being followed. Since we're working with patients' data and we're basically working with human lives as well. So these systems, they definitely have to be very, very well written and nicely followed. And it's way easier to make sure that a software or an AI would actually follow the procedure that you've outlined, than to make sure that like a set of people or like a group of people would essentially follow the same processes. Again, the main issue of that is the point 2, which is the cost of errors. And a system where in general you have a system integrated in certain procedure of the business. If it's an AI based, you would have a lot more intelligence and a lot of more things that this system can basically do. So if we're speaking about a default healthcare business, which is a clinic, and let's say like you're running a clinic and you're checking out like how much turnaround you're basically making from certain patients, from certain services and stuff, the system that is implemented with the use of the AI, it can analyze the data and provide you with the insights, and not only you, but managers who basically run certain team members, and to the team members as well. So for example, we basically have the CRM, and you would essentially be getting all the data about the things that people are doing in the workplace, and AI would be able to say like, hey, you have some issues, like this metric is a bit down in comparison to your peers and in comparison to the average in the industry. This is something that you should do. Here are the internal documents that we have inside the business to help you. And this is something that you should check. The average time to fix this is 4 days. Make sure to check out all the information. If in 4 days the metric would essentially stay at this stage, please talk to a manager to get this solved and then make sure that something like this would not happen. So the implementation of the system like this with the use of the AI, if you can imagine, it would definitely put the business who would have a system like that way above the competition, because it would basically figure out the issues way before they would turn into the lagging result. And therefore, it would essentially help to solve the issue as well. And even if you won't have AI as items in the system, if you would have just people, they would still be able to figure out and improve and fix stuff faster as well. So that point is very, very interesting. Workflows supercharge opportunities, value, and issues. That's essentially about default things that we're doing in the process in any system, and it's essentially about of like the structurization, the creation of this workflow inside the business. I'm talking both about creation of systems where you basically have a default set of rules in a real world, and at the same time there are different tools that you can use inside the business to automate certain things. Let's say you have a CRM and you have a connection to this like Zoom, and you have a connection to transcription, and then you can parse transcription and you can put it into AI and actually figure out if AI sees mention some certain words inside the transcription, and based on that you can maybe gather some data and see like what type of medicine or what type of things like your clients are essentially saying about your product at a certain point, or maybe it's like a telemedicine service and you would want to improve the retention rates by improving the quality of physicians who are essentially hosting the calls. So AI like ChatGPT right away, right now, it already can automate these workflows. That there are essentially tools like Zapier and Integromat through which you can connect different softwares through APIs. So you can basically have these type of automations inside the business. And ChatGPT right now, basically as we speak, you can put a sequence of tools there, and if it knows the tools, it would create a specific workflow. So it would essentially create it to you, write the source code, so you can basically get it and put it into this automated software and use in the business right away. We have people who specifically have like the title of automation specialists in our business, and this is like not like something to do with quality assurance. That's basically automation of different business processes inside different segments of business. So these people, they come into the department, they figure out what type of business processes are there, they figure out how to like divide them, where there are bottlenecks, how to remove them, how to automate things, and at the later stages of the process, they basically create these sequences to connect everything into the software through Zapier and Integromat, and that's something that ChatGPT is essentially providing you with an option to do already right now as we speak. So value of this is huge, and basically I think it's kind of similar to engineering, because all the like thinking work is being done by by specialists currently who have experience, but just this part where the human is like doing the integrations and figuring out stuff like how should this work, what type of properties I have, and how to connect the whole thing. This part is being outsourced to ChatGPT right now already, which provides for the human more option to basically dive deeper into the business processes, dive deeper into the exact picture, and essentially figure out the better architecture for the whole thing. The issues that you might face with something like that, I would say that probably would be like one of the main issues that you can face with ChatGPT is basically not knowing properly, I would say, how the tool works, and essentially being able to prompt to transfer exactly what you would like the tool to basically do. One of the things that many people who try ChatGPT does not know is that it actually saves the context. So if you are speaking with basically a specific chat, you can basically write some type of problem or some type of prompt to do something, and then you can basically add like do this instead of this, change this part, improve this part, and then you can say something like take all the context of everything that we've spoken about and make something of it. It's a very, very interesting part of the functionality because it basically saves the state, it saves the context. That's not something that you can have that you have in like search engines currently. And that's something that improves the process, because if you would essentially transfer the same type of process to, for example, like writing a code or creation these type of workflows, it improves the process a lot, because it might create a wrong workflow in the first place, or maybe the automation engineer figure out that there are some additional properties that he would like to use to maybe show some more data at the output of the whole thing that he would be able to utilize and he would be able to use with ChatGPT, saving the context in the process of the whole thing. So the second part is steps to integrate ChatGPT, which is diagnosing, researching, specs creation, implementation, conclusion, support, and improvement. It's a very interesting part because I would say that the process is vastly based on the process of how we integrate custom software development solutions into the businesses and how we integrate blockchain into the businesses as well. It just have its own interesting parts, I would say, in the process that you would need to count. And obviously the sphere of implementation is a bit different as well, because like with blockchain, you can solve certain problems. With AI, you can solve certain problems. If it's custom software development, you can solve most of the problems. Just depends on whether the economy would actually make sense for the business, and whether you maybe can create something that would close some of them initially, and basically show like for the stakeholders that the solution makes sense. You can then grow on the solution, improve it, and then make sure that you can develop it for quite some time to have a positive ROI. So I've been talking for like quite a while. Please, you can type like plus in the chat if you can hear and see me all right. I'm just checking this out before we essentially move into the part 2 of the presentation. All right. Diagnosing and researching, how to diagnose costs and ROI, potential losses. Not everything has to be automated. Human touch, B2B specifically. So usually there are other things that you can do with ChatGPT. The best things are the ones that you've heard that people are using already and that people are implemented already, especially in the businesses that are similar to yours. Several cases I know of. First of all is obviously copywriting, and it's not basically just standard and default copywriting. It's copywriting with conditions, and it might often be copywriting based on certain data, based on certain content that for example, as human, you would need to consume in the first place, analyze, then give some outputs, and then based on that create some kind of a sales lead, or maybe a pitch, or maybe a certain email to one of your clients to solve the situation, things like that. If you're in the business where you're providing like services or building projects for clients, you can often give certain context to ChatGPT, for example, about the project. And for example, you have like a certain issue or certain concern, certain objection from a client during the delivery process of the project. So you can basically utilize the tool to help, for example, with that as well. By you can basically link the initial overview of the project if you have it somewhere, maybe like some type of specs, or ChatGPT can actually analyze it. You can describe the problem, or even just copy the emails of the client. You can ask ChatGPT to provide you with responses. Might be useful in healthcare, depending on what type of product business you run. If it's like a typical client, like a doctor to patient situation, that's one thing. It's like if it's like some kind of SaaS, like a telemedicine product where you have a subscription, maybe you have like some support cases, you can automate it like that there, because following the research is like the most amount of time that it takes for the support person to respond is because they're basically thinking on the answer. They're thinking like what to answer, how to respond, and things like that. And ChatGPT can like optimize this process heavily. And if you would essentially integrate this into business, you would increase the amount of answers. Therefore, you would be able to decrease the amount of people who work in the support. Therefore, save on the costs. And if you're like mid-size or large-size business, over the course of the year, it might be a very nice sum that you would be able to invest into marketing or improvement of the service, so you can essentially take larger market share and disrupt the competition as well. And obviously, ChatGPT is also very, very nice in terms of analyzing of data. There is one topic that I didn't want to touch heavily with ChatGPT, which is specifically in healthcare, which is working with providing diagnosis to people based on the patient's data and things like that. There are some limitations that you would basically face if you would try to give this type of information to the tool as well. However, we see that in some businesses, with some clients, sometimes we can implement something like this just to give a hint and just to optimize the thinking process as well. Or maybe some of the businesses, some of the telemedicine businesses that we used to work with, we were doing the implementation that a physician was stating the diagnosis already. And after that, only after that, they were feeding all the information to ChatGPT just to see basically if they missed something or if AI would provide a different type of results. And it's not like providing about like the diagnosis is basically about just giving hints about certain things, because obviously it has like only open information from the web and stuff. So those are like several examples. How to diagnose? You basically take these examples and you think about your business processes. You can basically break the whole thing down and think, what are the things that could be automated? What are the things where I have like bottlenecks? I have too much stuff. I have like large costs for lower level activity. Therefore, because I have a bunch of people there, for example, the process of management, they are lower, the process of control, they are lower as well. Therefore, I essentially, I'm not providing like the best experience to my patients, to my customers, and therefore I'm essentially losing money, losing revenue, and it doesn't work the way I would like it to work. This part, it can definitely not be automated fully through the ChatGPT, but definitely improve in terms of the things like that. That's basically just one example, but if you were working on the automation of digital part of the business before this AI thing came up, the whole process is pretty similar. You come into the department, you check out the business processes, you see what kind of things you can automate. The only new variable you have is in the process is the usage of ChatGPT, and the person who is doing the analysis, he should understand very, very well the capabilities of the software and understand what kind of things can be done, what kind of things can be done. Costs and ROI. So implementation of ChatGPT basically depends on the exact business problems and on the scale basically that you have as well. And there is an issue where, for example, certain people, they basically come into like too much and they like would want to try to automate like everything, remove everything. And this would be point 4 from this presentation that I would cover, which is also a very, very interesting part. So as everything in business, you should calculate the ROI. You should really understand and see if something like this really is losing you money, and that it hurts, like it might not be like losing revenue at this stage, but blocking you from growth, for example. Because, for example, if it would work better, you would have more referrals, and the cost to acquire the customer as a referral is way lower if you would do it like through acquisition, through marketing or some other channels. And maybe it essentially stops your business from growing because this part of the delivery is not being liked by the customer, by the patient. And it can apply to many different healthcare businesses, both in basically real world, if it's like a product, if it's like some blockchain healthcare type of thing. So very different things. And yeah, it's basically the first exercise. If you see that you would have like quite a nice leverage there, you might enter certain communications with consultants, with people that you know who are doing something like this, allocating the budgets. But I will cover this in the points as well. Potential losses, not everything has to be automated. That's something that I've briefly mentioned. And I think it's connected with the human touch and B2B specifically. I think in B2C it matters as well. It's just harder in B2C to replicate human experience at scale. That's something that actually AI can do as well, because you can do some automated videos from a real person with certain voice, and it's not specifically ChatGPT. It's some other AI tools that are available currently. People would obviously understand that it's an AI generated video. However, it would just be consumed better as it's like a video, a person is talking, it's real emotions on the face and things like that. In B2B, it's interesting because the amount of the sums of the projects, they are larger. It's way more close connection with the essentially people and with end client as well. And essentially human relationship and proper customer success processes is one of the things that differentiate a lot of B2B type of businesses and essentially helps them to disrupt the competition. And it almost as their like business strategy. It almost as their like competitive advantage, because through the way that they're providing services, they basically don't have people who are leaving them and who are thinking of other providers potentially and things like that. So some of the things they also could be automated with the help of ChatGPT in B2B part of things that maybe if you're doing cold outreach, cold email. So before, and it also depends on the size of a check for you, I would say, for a certain item, because if you're, for example, selling like multi-million hardware to clinics, it might not be very, very wise to use AI, because like the communication that you would do through AI would have to be very, very sophisticated, because the market that you have already is quite small. Probably the market is quite tight as well. So everyone in the market knows each other, and it might be more wise and more interesting to basically approach people just by yourself in person, things like that. If it's like a 2K average project size, yeah, you can automate outreach, you can do videos, you can have automated GIFs, you can have automated bots website, and you can only talk to people on the phone as yourself, and all other communication could be done and automated through ChatGPT and other AI tools. There are some interesting things, because even before the presentation of ChatGPT, there was a presentation from Google where a AI woman voiceover was calling to order a pizza. And they were showing it on the presentation, and AI was saying things like, all right, I will wait. So mimicking fully how the person would essentially behave and talk on the call. And it's a very interesting thing, because imagine same type of AI doing sales calls for a company, which is fed on basically millions of terabytes of data of different sales calls that know specifically what to say at a certain point with what type of intonation, and like to specifically basically move the person at the next stage at a certain point of the call. That's something very, very interesting. That's something that can change things vastly. And I'm not sure, I don't know myself, but maybe there are some businesses who are using and who have something like this already, and or maybe this is something that Google is basically developing, and maybe some other companies. Specs. So this is a very important part in any like custom software development, and specifically AI chat GPT integration into any type of businesses as well. Specs is about outlining clear on paper what type of things you're solving, what type of issues you have in the first place, what type of problems it causes in your business in revenue, basically as well, and in general it might be culture, it might be like the perceived value of the service from the market, and basically then what kind of things could be fixed and how it's going to be done, and like the projected results as well. So I've just outlined a very simple like version of the specs. On top of that, if it's like a tech spec for a custom software specification process, you would basically have like a bunch of technical details in the process as well. And three usual benefits is saving time and money. As once you have specs, you know what to do, and as they basically say, like once you have the problem outline and the solution to the problem, you know like how to do it. Like the 80% the problem is solved already. Increasing success chance as well. Like if you basically just hire someone and like you're trying this automation, that automation, and this automation for different parts of your businesses, that might not end up very well, I would say. And with the specs, you would clearly know what to do, and you would have like certain budgets and timeframes in place as well. Maximizing the ROI once it's defined, once you have everything on paper, the budgets, the time frame, the timeline, it's definitely easier as well to calculate the ROI initially and then compare it with the expectations, and do some things in the process as well. Because if you have the expectations in terms of the ROI once the solution is, for example, launched, and you have it launched for several months, and you don't see that the expectations that like a reality meet the expectations that you had, you might look more into in terms of like implementation, into integration of the actual solution with your employees. So education of the employees, education of everyone in the business on how to use the solution. You might reach out to the developer as well, check out the analytics, and you might do some things if you basically have metrics and if you have the data. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Implementation. The first point is very interesting, not just engineering but business expertise. So integration of ChatGPT is interesting because that's a combination of technology and understanding of business and business processes, and that's something that is definitely valued on the marketplace a lot, because you can have like very talented engineers, but they won't understand business, especially your business, especially if you're speaking about healthcare. There's like a niche inside the niche, which might be often like very hard to grasp and to understand. And you can have like awesome business people that understand business process, but they would be able to do just basic implementation with ChatGPT and nothing else. So it would be like a very limited amount of value to the business as well. Understanding of business processes, I already mentioned that. Test before deployment. That's a default process also in the custom software development, but we see that with some implementations in some of the businesses, people forget to do that. And they basically add unnecessary cost of human error into the AI implementation, which is quite interesting because we're doing AI implementation to remove that. But by not testing it initially, we are adding on top, and depending on the business, you might actually like lose like several clients and certain revenue, depending on what part of the solution was basically automated, where and how. Integration for employees and guidance. Many tools and many things in terms of the internal systems and internal onboarding processes, integrations, implementations could be automated as well. For example, we're working on several AR and VR solutions to basically automate the training process inside factories for different, for basically a set of employees. So you can imagine like a factory where you have like 10,000 employees, you have like certain things that the person should figure out and do. And we were building a solution where you basically wearing a VR headset and you see a simulation, and inside the simulation you have like a person like just voice who's basically telling you what to do, and the program is analyzing like if you do stuff right, and it provides you with some intelligence and some feedback. So you can basically train before you would be on the workplace, which automates a lot for the business, which saves a lot of costs. And like right now with the implementation of the AI, we can add even more control and more feedback into the system, which is very nice, and which even more improves this part of the automation, which improves the quality of the whole thing, which speeds up the training as well, which decreases the cost for the business by a lot, depending on the scale. Because if you have 5 employees, you probably not need something like this. And integration, I think I've mentioned this as well, but The tool that I was referring to several times in the webinar as well, which is essentially an AI video creation tool where you can have like real faces of people with real emotions, with different voices and things like that. It can be very, very well utilized for internal training and onboarding processes as well. And if you would essentially tweak the system a bit, and you would be getting certain feedback, and you would basically have a system to track data and analytics from a new person who's onboarding, and you would basically working with them, and you would set up the AI in the way it can provide feedback to a person in terms of certain errors that the person might do in the onboarding. It's like next level. So this type of integration definitely like would take some time and would cost a lot. It would also make sense for like larger businesses only, but on a scale, that's like crazy. It's crazy competitive advantage because you're decreasing the costs on the onboarding and hiring new people. And if it's something, if it's like a position of which like you have like thousands of people in the company, for example, it basically a game changer for this type of company if developed and implemented properly and integrated by the business properly as well. So it's not like a 1 week build as well. Support and maintenance when it's needed. So it's a very interesting thing, and I would say that like it's not needed in cases where the data is not being tracked properly, because often the support and maintenance improvement of the current setup would be needed often as well. However, since the industry is quite new, and since if you would integrate certain things about AI or ChatGPT in your business tomorrow, let's say, you would probably not find like many competitive businesses who would have this integration or something similar already. And that's why support and maintenance might not be needed for quite some time. However, eventually they would pick up, and it's basically your choice if you were improving the implementation over time and making sure that you are way ahead of them, even once they catch up, or if you basically just do nothing, focusing on something else, and then they will pick up, and then you will basically be losing your competitive advantage. How to perform supported and maintains only based on data, usually data that's coming from the market as the base type of data, because everything we think of before we got data from the market is an assumption. We face this a lot because we're working with a lot of startups and many founders. They come with different ideas to us, and we push people always to basically get market feedback as fast as they can, so they can basically get market validation and get feedback on the assumptions and then they have about the product, even about market research, because like not dependent on market research, once the product is on the market, it can show different metrics and it can show different results. Tracking and analytics, something that I mentioned several times already. That's mostly one of the things for support and maintenance. For any improvement, it's very bad to improve just on a feeling. Like I have a feeling that they need this functionality. It's usually the best thing to base your decisions on data in that case. Mistakes to avoid during the process. So this part probably should have been covered by Domi. I think I've taken about 45 minutes already. So I would basically just share general things in terms of the implementation. So let's say like you have a certain business problem inside the business and you would want to use ChatGPT to do something to automate, let's say like it's a healthcare business, you're thinking of different implementations. And I've specifically given several examples during the whole presentation. However, I'm not giving like specific examples currently because healthcare as a niche is quite huge. There are a range of different projects and a range of different products, business models, and some of the issues they basically would be similar from a business to business as well. So mistakes to avoid, for example, that instead of if you're a decent sized business, I would say it's like US, like, I don't know, like 20, 50 more people depending on the product, 20 or 50 plus people. If it's like a software product, if it's like a clinic, obviously there are more people since it's a different revenue model. But if it's like a software product and if it's profitable already with 50 people, you should be doing nice numbers already. So mistakes to avoid is basically trying to do something by yourself initially, especially in healthcare. You can kind of play with a tool by yourself, just mimicking the process, but I would advise against essentially doing any type of implementation yourself, because there are certain issues that you would face with the compliance and with the security. So there, I would strongly advise to have someone who was doing something like this already, who knows what issues we can face during the integration with the compliances, and what issues can cause the security breaches to basically appear on the project and on the product as well. I would also advise against doing something without proper planning, because you might want to have this feeling because it's on the hype currently and everyone is talking about this, everyone is using AI, Microsoft is implementing ChatGPT 4 into Bingo and things like that. So you want to be on the trend, but it might be that your business doesn't need it currently. It might be that your main competitive advantage is actually human touch. Maybe you run local business, or maybe your customers actually value you over the competition because of the approach that you have with your clients. And it might be that by implementation of the AI processing inside the business, if it's customer facing, you would basically kill this competitive advantage and get yourself out of the business if it's something smaller. It might be like this as well. So I would generally advise and get the consultants and just providing him with a feedback hey, I have a feeling that something like this should be taken care of. Look into this part, look into that part. Please provide me with your feedback. What do you think? And often some people, they might say that hey, yeah, I don't think that I can automate or improve anything here with that. It's probably a very rare case, depending on the size of the business and essentially number of operations and business processes and departments inside the business as well. Because I would say for a company of at least 100 plus people, you would almost always have something to automate or improve with ChatGPT, because there are just too much processes. Only if it's not just two departments doing the same thing, you have 70 people on one role, 30 people on another role. If it's a very, very simple business, but that's basically essentially a different thing as well. Some people, they try to spend too much time and they try to look into that too much. So that's something they've covered already. That by basically working with a consultant or someone who was doing this already, you're improving the amount of time that you would actually spend on this. You're improving the amount of value you would probably get from it as well. And yeah, it's nice to check out if you have a title of head of innovation in the company. I think that you should definitely know what is capable from implementation of AI. But even us being an innovative company and being a software development company, I'm pushing, and I see several people in the company. It's actually my partner, my business partner as well from Interexy. We're kind of pushing the implementation on the tool in different departments, trying to do it softly, show hey, you could do this thing with the implementation of the tool here. You can do this thing right there, and people are getting it. But obviously they have day-to-day operations. They have the things that they have to take care of. So maybe from our point of view, it's not happening at the speed that we would like it to be. And we have a nature of the company where everything is basically innovative, and where you basically need to do a lot of things to stay in this type of business, because there is a bunch of competition in the market. So I would say focus on something where there is a really huge ROI, especially if you have people who are not very familiar with the technology. It might be harder for them to understand how the whole thing works. So I would recommend against basically integrating it everywhere right away. So tomorrow everyone is using ChatGPT, because it's not going to happen. You would probably just shift the attention of the people, and it will influence the results of the business in several months from now, depending on the time frame of the turnaround side of the business as well. So this is probably it at this stage. Took 50 minutes. I would not want to take more time on the presentation as well. We will be sharing the deck after the after the webinar as well. We have most of your emails too. That's a Q&A session. If you have any questions, I will stop screen sharing now. I will check for the questions in the chat. If you have any questions, you can use emotion on Zoom to raise the hand, and we can even talk in the voice as well. Or I will just check questions on the chat and see if we have some, so I can respond to some as well. All right, let me start from the beginning. Yep, we would be sharing the recording. I will just make a quick note, I'm sorry. All right, nice. Cool. How does one work with housing for those one need to careful in the process where one is creating report? So it's basically a very interesting question in terms of the data compliance and integration of chat GPT into the whole thing. I would say that it depends on what type of things you would basically want to integrate and implement in the process, and how the whole workflow looks as well, because it would heavily depends on like what type, like where is the breach of the compliance that you are close to, so you basically not go over with something that you would want to do. General process, I would say they are the same in terms of the software development with this type of compliance. You would just need to look at certain additional points in terms of the implementation of ChatGPT, exactly because it decreases security in certain things, especially if for example you would want to use the AI in communication with the employees of the company. So if you basically have many operators who would have access and do something with it that have to do with the data, so it's not just like one person, or maybe not something automated. So it's something that should be spec'd carefully, and I'm specifically answering this question in a very broad way because we can approach the compliance from different parts. So if, for example, you add a bit more context, I would be able to respond to that in a more clear way. The second part, I think we'll just send the question. We'll just save the question, I'm sorry. And I think we'll send you a full response from our AI and automation team after the presentation as well. Can you train ChatGPT just for own use? So that's a very nice question. You can do that if you are basically saving this state. So you can do that if you are in one chat and you are saving the context, and you can feed it some data, and you can ask for some responses based on the data that you are feeding. And then you can ask, like, based on what you generated, do something, do this or do that. So in that way, it's possible. And basically, if you have account with ChatGPT, you would have all the chats that you have saved. So you can use it on a daily basis. You can save the state all the time. And if you're working with specific type of data, with specific type of task, can basically just feed information and then essentially ask in the same chat to generate certain type of results based on the information that you were feeding and based on the things that you were doing. That's all right. Let me save this thing as well. Just one moment. Right, it pop up my Zoom. How does someone do that with the API? Yeah, so it's basically the same type of integration. The API is something that you can access easily, and if you operate in one shot and essentially it's open all the time, you can be feeding certain type of data and you can be generating results from it as well. Is it possible to change it within your own data, and how safe and secure is it? The first part of the question is answered already, and how safe and secure is it? So the answer is it depends. For example, if you're using if you're working like with vulnerable data that you want like to share, and if you're doing just like through your browser window, it might be like not very safe because someone can get access to your PC device. It also would depend on what type of security measures you have there, because sometimes you can have a private connection, sometimes you can have certain issues. For example, we are working with certain fintech institutes that as the security measure, they are sending us notebooks to work from, and they have all like set up there. Like they're sending not the notebooks, but like laptops, and basically we're working from there. So I would say the best way to do it safely is through the usage of the API, because there on the web we'll have a standard set of tools. We can do the security integration with tokens. If it is something like very complex, we can do something with blockchain decentralized and with the storage of data. We can install the private servers to only communicate with APIs through them and store some data there. So it's essentially a range of things that you are getting in the backend and in the backend development world if you're doing something like that. Yeah, so someone is basically just asking. I'm not voicing over the question because that's something that was answered, that was asked like directly. So someone is asking, and they have like a range of recordings, so a range of data. They would want to feed it into the ChatGPT, and as far as I can understand, operate on that and provide some general results and be able to feed some data to the model so it can learn on this data and then provide the results. So yeah, based on the response that I provided already, there's something that can be done through the API and through saving the state of data that you're essentially feeding into the ChatGPT. So it would be like the integration of like creation of custom platform, I would say. So we can have some like, like a website, like some front end on the web, some admin panel, we have like login, some type of functionalities on the back end. We essentially have the connection to the API of ChatGPT. We would be feeding the data there and basically have the integration to generate results based on the prompts that you would have with the chat GPT specifically. The prompts, they're also very interesting topic, because depending on what type of prompts you would create, it can actually provide different results. And in our cases, for example, we were asking a certain, I would say, sensitive information. And if you do a prompt one way, ChatGPT won't actually respond. It would say something like, I don't have info, I can't respond to this type of question. However, if you would rephrase the question, if you would stay in the chat for quite some time, if you would like, if you would want to change things, and if you would want to play with it, eventually it would provide you with a response to that type of sensitive question. And then you can basically save the prompt and you can reuse it for these type of things, and then you can feed more data, and it's a whole bunch of things that you can basically do in the process. Let me see if we have any more questions. All right. Yeah, so I think that's probably it at this stage. Thank you everyone for joining. We have all of your emails, so we will send you a recording of the webinar as well, and the presentations too. If you would want to reach out to me with any questions, feel free to send email at stan at interexy.com. I just posted it in the chat. We do provide free GPT consultation. So it's basically just consultations about the setup that you might have, and specifically in healthcare as well, as we are basically focusing in healthcare as a software development company. That's one of our niches. So there is a high chance when we would be speaking about the ChatGPT or in general AI implementation to your business, you would understand the context and would understand the issues that you are facing with. Thank you for spending this hour with me and with us. If you don't have any questions, I would like to let you go. And yeah, well, let's stay in touch. We will be sending some information. Thank you very much. See you. Bye-bye.